advisory services can do and will be able to do. So please place your microphone on mute. So I'm going to let Mark introduce solar advisory service and what solar is all about and how solar can help. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much, Eric. I'm Mark Ward. I'm an electrical engineer by profession, and I'm Chief Technical Officer with the Solar Advisory Service. We are a consultancy organisation. We have 7 partners in the business, and we speak to a lot of corporate businesses that are at various parts in their journey to net zero. And we help them with their greenhouse gas reductions and their objectives within this space. We have got a lot of experience in this space. We have got complementary skills across the other partners within the business. We fully understand the built environment, buildings, roofs, solar, utility scale battery storage, and wind. So what I'll do, I've got a little presentation that I will run through, and hopefully it gives you a better insight into utility scale solar and how it can perhaps really help your business reduce your greenhouse gases, but not only that, your bottom line as well. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks very much for the opportunity, Eric, and I'll run through the presentation now. Hopefully it'll give people an insight on how they can potentially decarbonise their estate. So there's a lot of sort of misconceptions on solar, and certainly solar working in Scotland, and the weather hasn't been very good, has it, over the last little while. But you do not need direct sunlight for solar photovoltaic. You just really need some daylight, which it is daylight out there, I think, Eric. It looks that way anyway from here. So I'll just run through a few different slides, a few different scenarios, and hopefully I'll give you the insight into solar. So driven by the demand for sort of low cost, clean, green energy, solar will be the largest global power generation technology as early as 2035. So about 10.5 years' time, solar will really reduce your carbon emissions. It will, cut your energy bills almost by half at times, depending on what your utilisation is. And the big thing, and when I'm speaking to most chief financial officers, they can't tell me what they're going to be paying next year or 5 years' time for their energy, which is incredible. So how can you do cash flow forecasts that are accurate? So with solar and other renewable technologies that you have under your own control, it's giving you sort of energy independence, and you know what you're going to be paying for your your energy generation. Can also increase your asset property value. Knight Frank put out a little statement a couple of years ago. It increases your value of your property by up to 7%, and it also increases your EPC value of your property as well. So solar panels have moved on exponentially over the last 10, 15 years. So monocrystalline panels that are utilised now, and they're so much more efficient than what they were before. And I won't bore you with any other bits and pieces on this slide. But most of the main products are now manufactured out in China, and the efficiencies are fantastic. Panels are warranted now for 25 to 30 years. Inverters are performing so much better as well. So again, what we would need to design a system is sort of half-hourly data and your energy bills, and we could look at doing a design for you free of charge, and giving you a little hand with if you were perhaps looking at solar. And we get asked this question a lot of times from board members and senior management team about energy costs and, what if we put solar in and, we're generating our own electricity and we're reduce our price per kilowatt on that energy that we are generating. But if you look at this graph, again, inflation against the increase of, energy costs over the last 20 years, then you can see that RPI is tracking way lower than what energy costs are. If you were watching the news over the last couple of days as well, the head of Ofgem has indicated that energy prices are going to increase 10% from October this year. And again, we'll probably see another increase probably into December, January of 2025. So again, it's just increasing all the time. And, I don't need to mention the sort of state of our economy currently in the UK. It's challenging out there at best for most businesses and organisations. So solar panels and the Scottish climate. I know this is probably the weather hasn't been great this year at all, but they do work in daylight. We sort of utilise the best software on the market, which looks at historical energy data over the last 20 years from the postcode in question. And again, the shading, can be an issue with solar panels. But again, if you sort of utilise optimizers and stuff, then those arrays won't shut down, and the panels that are not in shade will continue to generate electricity for you. So here are all the components within a solar panel. You've got aluminium, glass, EVA. You've got your solar cells, the backsheet, junction box. So 70%, 76% glass, 10% plastic, 8% aluminium, 5% silicon, and 1% of metals. So I hear people saying, what do we do after the life cycle is up on these solar panels? And that's just a little slide on the recycling process of these panels. This is an example project actually for a large business, and if you eat potatoes, then you'll probably know who this business is. I've taken the name of this business off, but this is a large solar system, 2.7 megawatts of generation. And again, this business is paying around 21.5 pence per kilowatt hour for their energy just now. They consume over 10 million units of energy per annum. Electrical spend is £2.2 million, and that's a little graph on the profile of their electrical utilisation. So we've been working with these guys to, implement a large-scale utility solar project for them, reduce their energy costs, and also boost their green credentials for them. Again, they would achieve about 1/5 of their energy, from solar. And this little graph shows the generation month on month. As you can see, January, February, March, you're not generating a great deal. As you move into those summer months and tail off again into sort of October, it shows you the consumption. As I said previously, all of this is done through historical weather data, so it's very, very accurate. Moving forward, the utilisation of that PV, and you can see on the yellow is the PV generator, and the blue is the grid export. So all solar systems will spill a little bit of energy back to the grid, and you can set up what's called a smart export guarantee. So you can have a revenue stream from that generation that's not been utilised. And I know all businesses don't operate 7 days a week. So again, if you have any downtime at the weekends when you're not manufacturing, or when you're not within the business, then you can certainly get some money back from the district network operators. This is probably a little bit technical. Some people on the call will understand it clearly, but I won't go into it too much. But it just shows you those simulation results from that the slide that I showed you from the 2.7 megawatt solar system. And again, you can see the solar fraction getting 1/5 of their energy from the solar, but not to be missed is the carbon emissions avoided per annum, and that's over 1 million kilograms per year. So that's no mean feat. So power purchase agreement. So a power purchase agreement is a way of implementing or getting a solar system deployed on your business without any capex cost at all. We have several sort of hedge funds that sort of underpin this proposition. And again, what we would do would be to look at doing a sort of desktop survey, showing you some of the forecasted numbers with that. And again, as I say, there's zero capex cost. But what you have to do is sign up to a period of time, whether that's between 10 and 20 or 25 years. But it would really, reduce your kilowatt hour cost exponentially as well. And I know Eric's going to share these slides, so I won't read them verbatim. This is another example from that previous client. The grid rate was 21.5. The new power purchase agreement rate is 11.3 pence. So it's almost 50% cheaper than their existing grid rate. And if you look at the amount of trees that could be planted and the carbon reduction, it's fantastic. And with that PPA, they would save just £8.7 million over the life cycle of the power purchase agreement. After the power purchase agreement has ended its term, the asset actually transfers ownership over to the end user. And again, there will still be probably around 10, 15, 20 years worth of operational generation from the system, which is fantastic. Now, these systems can be fully monitored, will be fully monitored as well. So it's great to link into your BMS, look at the live generation, look at how much carbon you've saved today, this week, this month, this year, and it's great for your supply chain to be able to see that as well. So it's all good to be able to collect and aggregate that data. So there's other finance options, which again are very attractive. A lot of time the solar savings will pay for the HP in most cases. There's an enhanced capital allowance scheme as well, which you can get. So 25% of the the capex cost of the system, sort of taken off your corporation tax. So again, CFOs will like to tap into all of these benefits. Operations and maintenance costs have been included in here, and you can see a little spike in FY15, and that's really for to add in some inverter swaps. But if you look at the sort of legend, the colour code along the bottom, existing bill in blue, expected new bill in green, monthly payment in yellow, and the O&M costs in red. So you can see immediately this system is cash positive, and all the way up to FY7, then you retain ownership, and you can see the benefits. And again, this will save £13.2 million over the life cycle of this particular solar system. So planning permission, etc., depends on really the size of the system. The G99 application, which again will show you whether there's any grid restraints for that primary substation that potentially the system's going to connect to. Again, you can have a G100 limitation really in there, which is no export. So you're really consuming your energy on site. But again, battery storage, which I'll come on to in a minute, can be attractive, but large-scale utility battery storage can be very expensive as well. So this is just going back to the Smart Export Guarantee, or SEG, as it's commonly known in the industry. So basically what you're generating and you're not consuming, you will spill that back to the grid. So you're able to tie in a sort of commercial upside with the, the district network operators or the SEG operators, which are listed here. And again, Erica, one of the team, will share this with you guys at some point over the next couple of days. So annual investment allowance, which I touched on, again, is you can, reclaim 25% of the capex cost of a system and take that off your sort of corporation tax. Energy storage, which is known as BESS, and we were involved with the 50 megawatt battery storage facility for Iberdrola up at Whiteley's, which at that time was the biggest in the UK. And that has got a great storage and discharge properties up there. So again, it can be very, very beneficial to the right business as well. So what if I need a new roof? So a lot of people have got, aged assets where they may have asbestos roof. Again, that's something that we could potentially help look at if you are going to implement a solar system. So it could be rolled into the PPA, and you could perhaps have a new roof, which wouldn't cost you anything. But I may point out it's got to be proportionate to the cost of the solar as well. So it's got to be sort of 70%, 70 to 30 on the cost of the new roof to the cost of the solar. Again, this is just a little slide and just some of the key points, reducing your carbon footprint, giving you accelerated savings, faster you would put solar in. Again, your green credentials will increase exponentially, but also those bottom line savings, which you could utilise to, grow your business or, make some other capital expenditure with the business. And again, we're working with one of probably the largest private hospital group in the country. They've just been taken over with an acquisition, and we're sort of helping them with their solar and their rollout. And again, it's giving the operational team that extra funding to buy MRI machines and grow the business as well. So we operate full turnkey solution, from those initial rooftop surveys, site surveys, right through to the technical acceptance, which is a 90-page document, believe it or not. So it is a Rolls-Royce system. But everything as I talk about, it's feel free to reach into me for any advice, and happy to give you free impartial advice on any of this. And once again, thank you for your time. My email address is here, and thank you very much, Eric, for allowing me to present today. And I'll hand back across to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to open the floor now for any question you may have for Mark. You're still sharing your screen, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just...
and so if you want to either come off mute and ask your question or put your question to the meeting chat, let me know. But the floor is open to you guys if you've got any question for Mark. I have one actually, is if you don't want to go on the road but you've got spare land, is that an option?
Absolutely, yes. Ground mount is obviously a good option as well, Eric. If you don't want to impact your roof, or you may already have solar. So ground mount systems are very, very attractive. We're actually looking at one just now for NIMS, so the National Institute of Manufacturing Scotland. We're going to be increasing, hopefully, their roof mount, but also we're doing a little bit of ground mount, and they've got containers going in as well. So there'll be some solar on top of the containers, but yeah, ground mount's a great option as well.
Okay. Any question for Mark? As I said, put them either in the chat or come off mute. Okay, so as Mark kindly offered, he's happy to provide advice, so feel free to contact them if you've seen something that's of interest to you. Also, as mentioned, all the slides will be made available. So now I'm going to keep going with our presentation. If there are no questions, and I'm going to share my screen. You should see my screen now. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the agenda today? The way we've been thinking about it and the way we've been looking at it is we had a chance, and that chance was to be net zero by 2050. Unfortunately, the power to be wasted that chance away and let it go by. So now it is time for the private sectors to step in and do something about it and hopefully leave a positive legacy. So that's what that support series is about. And today I'm going to be talking about the why, the what, and the when of net zero, because we're looking at the 5W and 2Hs of net zero. And at the end of these series, you should be empowered to do something about it. So what is going to be the update on the why today? And last month, we looked at the three key stakeholders that were the consumer, the customer, and the employee. These months, we're going to look at the other three, the competitors, the organization, and the government. The update on the what is going to be around design thinking and ideation, which is something we are asked a lot about. And the update on the when is going to be where does it come from? What do the standards say, the methodology says, and what is the alternative to standards, i.e. pledges? So why it's about defining the purpose. It's about your visions. So as I said last month, we looked at it, we looked at 6 key stakeholders. And last month we looked at the consumer and the customer, and we looked at the employee. This month we're looking at the organizations, the competitors, and the governments. So if I look at the UK specifically, then from a nation and a region point of view, then it is already all in the legal. So in 2050 for the UK and 2035 for Scotland, 2045, sorry, for Scotland. And it's in law, it's legal, they must deliver these. If I look at cities in the UK, 3/4 of them, 75%, have got a plan to be net zero. And I include Scotland, Glasgow, and Edinburgh, who wants to be net zero, or committed to be net zero by 2030. And if I look at companies UK-wide, then 70% of them have net zero in their strategy. And 11% have no target. So if you don't have a target, you're not on your own. But the majority of businesses are moving on with developing and publishing targets. So why, who cares? The organization. And whether the organization care, because it's an opportunity for differentiation. So if you look at company and the drivers, 37% of surveyed made the requirement. So it's only 37%, so it's 1/3, which is good, but it's only 1/3. But they're not all being asked to meet any requirement by their buyers. They're not. So 63% haven't been asked, and only 17% have been asked by the corporation, the big guys. So you can see that there is few that are meeting, only 1/3, and very few, again, less than 1/4, have been asked to meet them. Yet businesses are taking actions. So 37% of them have got net zero or some sustainability into their procurement policy. 41% have engaged with their suppliers, and 42% have engaged with their customers. So the message here is, whereas maybe they are not asked, they are doing something about it. Businesses are doing something about net zero. And you're wondering, why are they doing something about net zero? Because there are benefits. And those are the benefits of taking actions. And in there, significantly, is differentiations. What being net zero offer is the ability to differentiate, to be different from your competitors. But it's not all altruism. Company cares, and you can see here in the UK, 75% of businesses believe that we need to be net zero by 2050, and 79% believe that even that we should have a 2/3 reduction by 2035. So they believe in it, businesses believe in it, companies believe in it. And 70%, the reason they are believing in it is not only, as I say, altruism, because 75% believe that their revenue improvement will be linked to sustainability. 56% believe that they will perform their peer on talent acquisition. And we know that talent acquisition is a challenge at the moment for the engineering and manufacturing sectors. And 52% are more likely to outperform their peers in terms of profitability. So that's the reason it's the right thing to do, and they believe in it, but it also has a business dimensions. And the other dimension is regulations, and one which is hitting the headline at one is the EU CBAM, with the UK CBAM in the background. And from that, what is the cost of carbon is going to erode profitability because it's going to be a tax, it's going to be a cost. But what there is the one that have done something about it will have a lesser erosion. And the margin could be anywhere between 2 and 12% better off if you are proactive in your sustainability endeavors, especially in this case, an example, if you are intensive energy sector. So why also? Because the competitors, and I've talked about differentiations, and the competitive cares because of financing. The new kids on the block, the people are going to do something about it because climate actions drive a low interest rate. So if you look at the average cost of capital, if you want, and then that's where there is an advantage. If what people see, what investors sees, is that if you link your endeavors to some sustainability project or sustainability target, then you will be getting access, you deserve access to cheaper capital. So that's why competitor care, access to cheaper capital. The other reason is the one that provide the capital, the shareholders, the investors, sees that businesses that have made commitments to net zero are likely to deliver a better return on investment. So as I said again, it's not all about altruism. There is still a business to be having. And in this case, only 11% disagree. So you can see that the majority of people agree or are neutral about the idea of getting a better return on investment. So that's why competitors cares. And if you look at it in more details, 12% of the deals are now related to net zero. And that used to be only 5% in 2018. So that's growing. But yeah, 22% of companies don't meet their scope 1 and 2 target, and 34% don't even have a scope 3 goals. So in one hand, you can see how people are investing more and more. But on the other hand, you can also see that companies are struggling to get where it needs to. Then the rise in investment is again increased, almost double, already 4%. due to net zero goals, yet 60% of companies don't have a scope 3 upstream, the upstream only, not even the downstream target to strategy to achieve those targets. So you can see how the investment is growing, but companies are still struggling. So if you are struggling, don't be surprised. And then the account of net zero deal is even greater in Scotland in proportion to the UK, in relation, sorry, to the UK. So Scotland is big on net zero, and it's understanding why is because of the resources. But the success rate has decreased 64% instead of 80%. So the chance of getting access to finances has decreased, but the chance of getting access to finances if you have a net zero ambition has increased. So that's why competitors care. And government cares, and they cares because of revenue. Taxing. So if you look at recommendations that have come to the government from the Institute of Fiscal Studies or London School of Economics, then they recommend to extend the ETS, the emission trading scheme, right, to cover more than what it's covering just now. They have recommended the creation of a UK CBAM, and the UK CBAM carbon border adjustment mechanism is currently going to happen. What it is the details are currently at the consultations stage, but it will happen. And they recommend that carbon tax should be increased. So you should think about the erosion of the property I mentioned earlier on. That's where it's coming from, between CBAMs, carbon tax, and ETS. That's where it's coming from. But that's where, if you are prepared, and that's what we've been saying, get ready before it hurts, then that's what you would get. They also care because of reporting the government, and we know that if reporting is not done right, then it's likely to be penalties. So reporting for SMEs, so the big corporation already have reporting requirements, but for SMEs, which are significant in the UK, because they are 99% of the business, 50% of the total UK greenhouse gas emissions, so they matters, then they are working to automate the sustainability reporting. So they are working on it. They want to automate because it's an SME, and for that, they've engaged support from bankers for net zero to help businesses track their greenhouse gas emissions and link this to access to capital. So reporting is another reason why the government cares. So if I look at step one on that 7-step process we've mentioned, which is about defining a vision, in this case, for the last three, if you do not, someone else's will, and that's your competitors. Why? Because it differentiates, and that's your organizations. And why? Because it's a source of revenue for the governments. So those are the last three why, the first three why we looked at them last month. So again, as I said, all that will be available online. Now looking at the what is about defining the task. It's still in step one, so you make it specific. You're looking at your vision and ambitions. We've looked at the why, now it's time to look at the what and the task. So how do you go about defining that task? Then as mentioned, net zero is an opportunity, but to leverage our opportunity, you need to look at 4 areas, your social trends, your market trends, your technology trends, and most importantly, the company strategy. And the reason for you looking at this is you want to start with desirability. And desirability is why it should be done. And to do that, you need to look at managing social and market trends. But once you look at desirability and started there, and there is a desire for it, it needs to be feasible. And feasibility is when you look at both suppliers, stakeholders, and the business. So what can the suppliers provide, and what can the business deliver in terms of products or innovations? And then you need to look at viability. And viability is the business strategy and the market trends. If you've got a product ready or available. You need to make sure it's going to be viable. And to be viable, you need a customer, someone that wants it, someone that buy it, and desirability. So that's when you need to do user-centered, leverage the opportunity. How you go about it, brainstorming. And again, that's something we can help and run brainstorming sessions. But the way you start is you start here with basically preparing for it, looking at media trends or looking at what your user needs. The user, their need, their insight, and you end up with a point of view. And that's before your brainstorming session, and that's going to deliver the desirability. And it is that point of view you're going to brainstorm. How are you going to brainstorm it? You're going to brainstorm it through how many we questions. That's going to deliver some ideas. Then you can clusterize those ideas to get obviously something more consistent, more manageable. And then you can prioritize those clusters using multi-voting, for example. And that's what you do during your brainstorming session. That's your feasibility. And then you're going to look at viability. And viability, once you run your brainstorming session, you're going to define your task, your target, your owners, and that's going to give you an opportunity. And that's the tracking you do after your brainstorming session. And for that, for example, the tool you could use is the Ocean or the X matrix. So that's how you go from, insights, trends, into managing a product and delivering a product. So that's the double diamond we talked about last month. Now, if you're looking at user needs and insights, then you could think about a sector would be advancing offshore wind. Okay, so it's about power generation and distribution. So it could be looking at the raw materials, steel and cement. It could be at recycling. It could be at generating and hydrogen, or it could be looking at materials, coatings, biofouling, self-filling. So if you're involved in any of the sectors, that may be an area where you want to move into. And luckily, we've got Forsythia Offshore Cluster that can help you gathering that information, getting, the user, getting the needs insight. So you can join that cluster and you'll get information if you are in those sectors, for example. Another area you may be interested in is mobility and transportations. And in here, it could be about power generation, like your technical asset. It could be about power consumptions, and we hear a lot about battery and hydrogen power, trains or buses, electrification, charging, batteries, or how you minimize that consumption, and you think about lightweighting or the type of coatings and surfaces you're using. So those are the area where you may be interested to look at. And again, how do you get user needs and insight? Or a cluster you may want to join. And that's, again, another supporting area. And then you've got also the shift to zero emission vehicles. That's the big one, the EV vehicles. Again, you'd be thinking about how do I play in that sectors? How do I join this? Then you could be involved in the upstream emission side of things. So for those people, it's about steel and glass making. It could be lubricants, it could be batteries, it could be brakes, textile. There's a whole area where people would be interested in. Or it could be about your direct emission. In this case, advanced manufacturing process. And here again, I would say you've got another hub you can join, which is a smart manufacturing data hub. So you can join that, and that's one of our hubs. So I've mentioned already a couple of clusters. We've got the hub, and we've got obviously the net zero group that we're working on at the moment. And as well as indirect upstream, you've got indirect downstream. So again, it's about lightweighting. Again, it's about recycling. So there is a lot of opportunities, and there are areas and teams and leaders you can contact to try to get that user needs and insight to develop that point of view, which you're going to brainstorm to deliver innovations. So your step one is about ambitions. And so in the what, it's about the priorities, and usually it's a government's priority. Think about the carrot and stick that you're going to think about, and I've done a previous webinar on the curiosity, and it's about innovations, and because you're going to need innovation to become net zero, you're going to need to play in those sectors, you're going to need innovations, and that's ambitions to solutions. So that's the brainstorming process I mentioned, and the various tools that are available. The when, now, define the timing. That's your step 2, you know. So it's about base year and target year. So a lot of people are asking, why 1990, why 2050? Well, it comes from A, the Kyoto Protocol, and B, the Paris Agreement. So in the Kyoto Protocol, they use 1990 as the base year. That's where everybody's compared to. So all the government will tend to use 1990, but you don't have to. But that's what government tends to be. And 2050 is because we need to be net zero by 2050 if we don't want to go above 1.5 degrees. And that's why I said earlier on, I think now the IPCC is saying you should think about resilience around mitigations, you know, adaptation around mitigations, because it's going to be very challenging. And that's the reason why you need the private sector to step in. And that's the reason why the private is stepping in. And that's what you've seen through either the organization or the competitors or the government. But if I look at standards, that's where they diverge. Methodology, and we'll talk about methodology in a webinar later on this year. But if you look at the specific case of base year and target year, and look at the greenhouse gas protocol, for example, of the standards we looked at previously, then you can choose your base year as long as it's verifiable, and as long as you've got good reason to choose a specific base year, and you define your target year. So it's fairly available as long as you can, fairly flexible, sorry, as long as you can just have a rationale behind it. If you go look at the SBTI, and now the SBTI has become net zero standards, then your base year is fixed in the sense that it's 2015 or later. So you can't choose any year you want. There is a minimum. And then you've got a near-term target, 5, 10 years, and you've got a long-term target, which is no later than 2050. So you can see here your base year and target year start to be defined if you're looking at the SBTI. And then if you're looking at the ISO standard 14064-1 for greenhouse gas emissions, then it has to be the current reporting boundaries. And what that means for that is that if, you know, during the year you divested or invested in businesses, then you need to do after this. So the organization the way it is today, that's how far back you want to go. And again, it needs to be verifiable, and you need to look at both emission and removal. And then you've got the new standards that's come on, which is the 14068-1 about carbon neutrality, and that's going to replace the PAS standard I mentioned previously in previous webinars. In 2025, this will be the new standard. The PAS will be retired or superseded in this case. And here, you need a rationale for the timing. So again, you choose your timing. It's fully flexible. You need a rationale for what you explain it, but they give you a strong recommendations, which is, 5 to 10 years for your short-term target, 20 years for your long-term target, and be ready by 2050. So it doesn't tell you have to, but it strongly recommend you do. But there is an alternative to standard you could think about, and you could think about pledges. And pledges is, again, what you pledge to achieve, and that's usually done publicly and is published. So it is auditable, people can look into it. And it goes from being net zero by 2026 from the MRS, and I doubt many people are going to sign up to that, to 2050, for example, for the SME Climate Hub, which is quite significant in the UK. But what you want to consider is your stakeholders, your customers, especially in parallel stakeholders. What do they need? They are the people that matters. And your resources, so financial, human, and your ambition and allocation. So have you got financial shareholders on board? Human is your employee there. And allocation, have you got the skills to do what you want to do? So that's the pledge. So in terms of timing, from when to when, you need a base year and a target year. Your base year, the recommendation is relative to the gas is today. Your target year is about meeting your stakeholder needs. So who needs what? Who your stakeholder wants? So it could be different. The UK government, for example, would have a PPN notice, and that would have a 2050 target. The Scottish government would have a 2045 target. But then you could have like your customers, like multinational company would have other ambitions, or what did they sign for, pledges. So that's what you want. You want to meet your stakeholder needs. So that's when. Now, they are available. There's a lot of support available from ourselves, Scottish Engineering. So I've mentioned the various cluster for St. shores and the red cluster. If you want insight, if you want to understand your user needs, you've got the Slime Action Data Hub, and you've got all the work we've done on net zero. So we've got tools, which is a roadmap, how you develop that roadmap, and innovations, how do you run innovation system. We've got data, and now, by the time that series will be complete, we'll have 21 webinars been delivered, and all will be available online. We've got time. Time can be a constraint, and that's where we're helping again. So today, we had over 320 one-to-ones across 130 organizations, and we've run 2 pilots, so we are here to help. Information, so we're providing the information through our monthly newsletter, so hopefully that's helpful. If it isn't, please do let me know. And we've developed a course, skills, training. So we've got 2 courses with substantial discount available for our members, because we like to take care of our members. And then we've got also access to reports, knowledge. So we've got a library at the moment of over 475 reports. Now you can get access, and members can get access, free access, as long as you request your coupon, then you get able to access. So we're here to help, and there is support available from a range of options. So I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mark for joining me today.
Thank you.
And introducing everything related to net zero. To thank you for taking the time to join. And now I'm going to open the floor to any question you may have on what either Mark or I have been discussing. So if I'm looking into the chat, or if you want to come either put in the chat or come offline, chat just now is please make sure our slides, yes, they will be available. They will be made available over the next few days on the usual place on the microsite. Any questions? Please come off mute if you want to put it, or put them in the chat. No, as I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. I've put the detail in the slides, and again, the slide will be available. So if you need support either from a clusters point of view, from a hub point of view, or a net zero point of view, that's some of the services that you would get from Scottish Engineering. Okay, so if there isn't any question, I think I'm going to close the meeting. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you all for joining us and taking the time to join us. Well, I'm sure it's a very busy time, and I'll be able probably to give you a bit of time back. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye, everybody.